I got a question for you. How many times would you try and fail before you finally quit? Once? Maraming ganun eh. Di ko na kaya to. This job is not for me. Twice? Susubukan ko ulit. Pero pag hindi ko pa makuha, ayoko na. 3 times? Ay, nakakatakot. After this, pag hindi ko pa kaya, ayoko na. And maybe, if you're exceptionally stubborn, alam mo, my special guest today tried 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times. And 4 food businesses, 4 failures, including one that lasted exactly 4 months. 4 yata favorite number mo, no? 4. And after the fourth failure, with whatever capital he had left from everything he had already lost, he tried again. One more time. And with 2 friends from high school in a driving range in Ortigas, a driving range, not a mall, not a restaurant, a stall at the golf driving range in Ortigas selling chicken wings and liquor to the after office crowd. Within 6 months, the lines were forming. Within a year, SM Mega Mall came knocking. Within a decade, Frankie's New York Buffalo Wings had 15 branches, over 400 employees, and had been named the #1 best place for chicken wings in all of Asia by Big 7 Travel in, listen again, all of Asia. I know what you guys are thinking. Alam mo yung mga nanonood dito sa episode na to, mga skeptical yan, saka critically thinking yan eh. Ay, ini-sponsor yan. Hindi ito sponsored, ha? As a matter of fact, hinahanap ko nga yung wings eh. Walang dala itong mamang to eh. Well, his name is Eduardo Firmalo. Or is it Firmalo?
Firmalo. Yeah.
And he went to Xavier School. He studied communications arts at De La Salle University, which I find fascinating because he's a man who clearly communicates best through chicken. And he's the president and co-founder of Frankie's New York Buffalo Wings, built alongside his 2 childhood friends and business partners, Te and Bin Tañedo.
Yeah.
All right. And then 3 boys from high school who grew up together, failed together, argued together, and built something together that the entire Philippines is now addicted to. Now, before we go further, I need to ask the question that has been bothering me since I read about this. I want you to welcome Ed. And thank you very much for
Thank you
making
for
time.
having me.
Maraming
Thank you for
salamat.
having me.
So this is the question I want to ask you. Ed, why is it called Frankie's?
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, it's one of the first questions people always ask me. We were thinking of a name for Frankie's. Research said na it was the recipe was invented by a mom and pop store sila in Buffalo, New York. And they were an Italian-American couple. And their place was called Frank and Teresa's Anchor Bar. So parang we said na we wanted it to sound authentic. Kasi if we named it Eduardo's, parang burrito naman yung binibenta namin. Or tacos.
True.
And my business partners were named Kevin as well. So parang, what's the most Italian-American sounding name?
Yeah.
Then naisip namin, how about Frank? But then we realized there's the Frank's Red Hot Sauce as well.
Meron.
So we added the IE para Frankie na lang. And then at the same time, sabi namin, sakto kasi yun nga, Italian-American yung roots. Tapos yung name din was actually Frank and Teresa. So we just added the word New York Buffalo Wings para people knew what we were selling kasi we were still introducing ourselves during that time.
You know why I was laughing a little bit? Kasi ang daming Italian named Tony. No? So, I was watching a segment in one of those programs, and I think one of the comedians said, have you ever wondered why most Italians are named Tony? Because many years ago, they migrated, and then when they came to New York, where the immigration and everything. So some of them could not speak English and everywhere. So sabi na, where do you want to go? To New York. To NY, Tony. So yeah, that's your name, Tony.
Okay, okay.
I don't know whether it's
Okay.
true or not, but it's so funny. And then you failed in food businesses on your own, then the chicken factory, and then what was the feeling of failure?
Well, when you graduate, diba, you always have all these hopes and dreams. You're so high, diba? You're so full of hope, youthful innocence, diba? So
Yeah.
I was syempre expecting to somehow at least do well, you know. And first, I went corporate muna for the first 3 months, then realized it wasn't for me. Then went into business, realized it's what I wanted, especially in F&B. But I didn't expect to fail that many times, nor to lose that much money. So I used up whatever savings I had for the early businesses. And failing, to be honest, it's a reality check. It's a reality check that, the real world is like this. Na you don't always get what you want.
Yes. Yes.
Na the real world will really, kick you if you are not ready.
Yes.
And sometimes the only way talaga is to, go through it.
Right. And I have had so many stories about business people before they succeeded, they failed a lot. Ang daming story ang ganyan. But I want to draw some more out from you, which is this. Kasi when I was listening to you tell your Frankie story, and you, of course, I was thinking like there's another angle here that I would love to draw out from you that can help a lot of our listeners out there, which is, ang major mo kasi sa college is communication arts.
Yeah. That's right.
Sana kung culinary ka, I would understand. So from communication arts, and then you went to corporate, and what was your job at the corporate world?
In corporate, I was in charge of promotions for a confectionery brand.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. So, yeah, communication arts, a little bit about marketing and everything else. And then you decided to go into F&B. Was there ever a time in your life wherein your parents would wonder, ba't ka pumapasok dyan? Hindi naman yun ang investment sa education mo.
For sure, actually.
Okay.
At one point, after I had closed about 3 businesses already, my mom told me, hanap ka na lang kaya ulit ng work.
Alright.
Diba? So, yeah, for sure, parang nagtaka rin sila ba't ako napunta doon. But for me, it was really me discovering that I wanted to create something that people would enjoy, that people would love, that people would experience. So it's all about creating something from scratch that that would bring value. So for me, that was really it. And I think my communication arts background played a big role pa rin.
Yes.
Kasi we couldn't afford any marketing naman, any consultant. So basically, that really helped us build the brand from scratch and, be able to visually communicate what Frankie's was all about.
Yes, it's so important. The reason why I asked you that question resonated with me because my son is also in the food business. And
I love his ice cream.
ice cream and now a restaurant
that's
as
nice.
well. And I remember because as a business person, I came from manufacturing, I came from garments. And I would wish that my one and only son would enter into business. And so when he was about to enter college, sabi niya sa akin, Dad, gusto ko sumama sa banda. Banda ka, banda. So I was thinking, teka muna, I have to caution. Kasi pag hindi ako maingat, baka lumabas eh. Huwag kang pumasok sa music. Kasi walang pera dyan. And then, buti na lang pinigilan ko. And then I thought, teka muna, nagtuturo ako on business, nagtuturo ako ng leadership. Baka naman pwedeng gawin natin transactional. So I remembered using all of my businessman's transactional skills. Let's do a deal. Let's make a deal. Sabi ko sa kanya, I'm gonna support you. music, hindi naman masama yan. But you support me. So I was wondering, sabi na, Dad, papasok pa lang sa college, how can I support you? Sabi ko, I don't need your money. What I need from you is the assurance that you might want to take an entrepreneurship course, which he did in UAP. Tapos, ang nakita ko na hindi ko ina-expect is music yon, and the band got famous. Got 3 CDs. Ang hindi ko nakita,
Nice.
while they were doing their recording, the Japanese owner of the digital recording studio mahilig magluto ng katsu. So, even the musical stars will go there and then they will convince the Japanese guys, sige na, mag-franchise ka na and everything, which he refused. But I think my son has a way of making kulit and he keeps on saying, sige na, Shinji, sige na. So pumayag. Alam mo, ang suspicion ko, pareho silang singkit kaya pumayag yan. And then, they came up with a restaurant in Maginhawa Street called Crazy Katsu at that time.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Oo. Pero dito ko nakita ngayon yung connection. You, with your major in communication arts, is now helping you in the F&B business. My son's creativity in music is helping him in doing his thing now in business. So, para in the food business, it makes me question. Minsan pag pinipilit ng mga magulang, kailangan magnegosyo ka or whatever, is it really a right thing? Or is it giving the liberty of the children to pursue what they love or what they like? What do you think in your case?
Well, in my case, I came from a family of doctors. Actually, both my parents are doctors. They met in med school.
All right.
And there are 4 of us as siblings. And to be fair, actually, out of the 4 of us, only one became a doctor, my eldest brother. And in all fairness to my parents, not once did they ever pressure us that we had to follow in their footsteps. So I think most of the time when you think of families of doctors, usually the kids follow the footsteps of their parents. It's very common na like at least half the children or more, or sometimes all the kids actually end up becoming doctors as well. So for me, I'm very thankful that I have parents who allowed us to,
discover your own path.
Yes. To do trial and error, see what we really like, instead of trying to tell us what to do. No, but there was still guidance, and I think at the end of the day, it's the values that they gave us that really helped us do well kahit paano in our respective fields. So yeah.
In this food business, it's actually very competitive, no? And you have to, as a founder and as the person running the business, what would you say would be the most difficult facet of business function that challenges you the most?
To be honest, I always tell people na it's a double-edged sword in the sense na people management. It's always been that, people are your biggest assets, but at the same time, they can also be your biggest challenge. So for
You're
me,
you're very polite.
I was gonna say biggest sakit sa ulo, but I think challenge would be the better term. Yeah.
And how many people do you have now?
Right now, if we combine everyone, that's 1,000. Yeah.
1,000
Yeah.
people. My goodness. I only have 3 children, and they're a handful to handle. But I've been invited to your store, and you have your team lead and the managers there. Meron na nasa-sense na maganda ang culture. So, how do you build a good culture? 1,000 people is not easy, huh? But of course, the most important thing are your inner circle and those closest to you. So how do you... First of all, I think I should reframe my question and answer first as, if there's one quality you can describe about your business, what is that culture that you have?
Okay, one quality. For me, it's personal, our culture. We just basically start small. Kasi we started small naman.
Yes.
So just to give an example, when you only had one store, we only had about 8 employees. when we did 2 shifts na, we had about 14. And so it was very easy to manage compared to later on. And I remember pag meron may birthday among our employees,
Yes,
what I would do, because I would deliver the stocks myself. So I would tell them, the stocks are in the car.
Oh.
Could you go get them?
Oo.
Tapos, we would have a slice of cake ready for the employee pag birthday nila. So basically, pagbalik nila, bit-bit nila yung stocks. Ayun, nakapatay yung ilaw sa kitchen and everyone would sing happy birthday to that employee.
Galing.
But eventually, as we grew, we couldn't keep doing that for everybody. So what happened was, nagkaroon na lang kami ng, una, parang like, there was a birthday bonus and a free cake every time it was someone's birthday. Then, as we grew, ginawa ng HR, it became like a birthday leave.
Birthday
So within
leave.
7 days of your birthday, outside your other leaves, you could take a birthday leave.
Okay.
And you always have a free cake or a free brownie. Yeah, so it translated even though our company grew. So parang for us, yung culture, it doesn't have to be grand gestures. It starts very small. Then it basically grows from there. Kasi the employees, they appreciate it. Eh. It's very
And you're still
personal to them.
trying to maintain that personal touch kahit na marami na sila.
Yung ibang aspects of it, to be honest, accidental. So for example, my dad later on went into public service, actually. So getting exposed to that, shaking hands with people, talking to people from all walks of life, parang naturally, I would just really greet our employees along the hallway, guests in the office. So I had no idea it was rubbing off on our other people as well.
Yes.
So I had final interviews, sabihin nila sa akin, "Sir, anong meron dito?" Sabi ko, "What do you mean?" Takot ako, "Anong meron?" Tapos sabihin nila, "Sir, kasi everyone is so nice. The guard is so nice, even yung mga utility, everyone who passes by, sir, aplikante lang ako, but they're all so nice." So I got that about at least maybe 5 times. So sabi ko, at least I know we're doing something right. Kasi, it rubs off on our people.
Yes,
And it has to
yes.
start from us talaga.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
but it was accidental. I didn't realize that, people were also being that way because I was that way in the office.
Kaya naman pala when I was there, like everybody is just so relaxed and everybody have fun with each other. And
Nakakahiya lang when you were there, tumulo yung aircon. I visited the store days before that, everything was okay. Tapos nung day na pumunta ka, tsaka pa tumulo yung aircon.
sinabotahe ko talaga yan. But depends on your customer service. But what would happen also was that a lot of people fail to understand culture. Culture is the way the leaders behave. No? Kaya yung leader, kasi kung masyadong suplado, mayabang, whether you like it or not, natatranslate ganun din eh. When the leaders are humble and then they value everybody else, nakakayang magyabang kasi yung culture. Customer service is the same eh. Like, for me, I would say the customer service begins with your security guard.
I agree.
Pag doon pa lang talagang, I have a term that I use in my seminars. Bago ka pumasok, mukhang pasas na yung security guard mo, siyempre. It has a bearing in our appetite and everything,
Yeah.
So, do you have, what happens if you do have employees na persist in their own way, doesn't want to be part of that general culture that you have? How do you deal with it?
When we evaluate our employees, apart from the KPIs, the competency side of what they're required to do, we have a portion there that has our core values. So it's very easy to remember. It's basically Frankie's. Fun environment, R, respect, A, accountability, N, nurturing, K, keeping up with the times, I is for integrity, E is for excellence, then S is for sense of ownership.
Sense of ownership.
And
Okay.
each one of those, nasa evaluation ng mga employees namin. So it's always something that we also gauge their performance on. It's actually a big part of it. It's about 30% of the entire score. So for us, it's a good way of gauging if that employee is aligned with us. kung may nakakalusot man, what we found is, especially for top management, they naturally fall away eh. If
Ah.
hindi nag-deviate sila from the culture, even if hindi sila,
Mm.
even if pumasa sila sa evaluations,
Oo.
eventually, you find that they will naturally fall away. Sila yung aalis.
They don't belong anymore. Ano?
Yes.
They
So,
don't
feel nila yun
belong.
eh, parang na hindi sila aligned eh. And
Mm-mm.
usually, it happens that way na it doesn't take very long before they usually leave. Kasi the
Yes,
environment is not conducive
Yes.
to how they are. Yeah.
You have partners in business,
Yeah,
diba? Your
yeah.
friends. And it's not everybody is agreeing all the time. So there will be fights, there will be arguments. How do you keep that partnership healthy, solid together? Because so many companies, even though they're doing very well, but if the gelling of the people in the board, they don't get together. So you see the demise of the company slowly. So what's the secret sauce that you have
Okay.
so you can stick it out together?
I've heard the story a lot about founders, even friends, or even magkakamag-anak, fighting over ownership and fighting over decisions. On our end, I think one thing we did right was from the get-go, it was very clear that, I would handle the day-to-day side of things.
Yes.
And that I would consult them when it comes to major decision making. So I think dun pa lang, okay kami kasi medyo seamless yung operations namin. As opposed to some people, some ownership style na ang dami nila and everyone has a say.
Okay.
And employees get confused kasi parang,
Right.
sino ba susundan namin?
Oh,
I get this a lot eh, na those na lumilipat sa amin parang, sir, kasi ang hirap eh. Hindi namin alam saan kami lulugar. Sabi kasi ni owner A, ganito. Sabi naman ni owner B, ganyan. No? So, it's something na we really made sure na very clear.
Defined ang roles.
Yes,
no? Very
defined yung
defined.
roles. Exactly. And next is transparency.
Okay.
So, from day one, ever since, even yung time na wala pa kaming internal finance, best effort talaga na kailangan full disclosure lahat ng aspects of the business.
Right,
So we would always have a monthly financial report which I would present. Later on, our finance head, Claudine, was the one who would present na to the board. But it was very clear na dapat month to month talaga. Meron mga clear financial statements as well as justifications for all the expenses.
Transparency talaga, walang tinatago. And
Yes,
everything else.
correct.
I sit on the board of a company founded by 5 high school friends.
Okay.
And the company has been going on for 40 plus years. No? And looking at the dynamics, sabi ko, no wonder. Kaya pala lumalaki itong company na to. And they still are growing. One thing I noticed is grabe ang disagreement, no? But they can fight it out, they can argue about ideas, but at the end of the day, their relationship pa rin is most important. Kahit na yung iba, they would say na, oh sige, kahit hindi ako agree sa'yo, but let's put it into a vote o kaya let's see what we can do. For me, that's very healthy. Kaya minsan nasa tama rin naman tayo. Pero if it is something that will contribute to the breakup of our relationship, ang laking problema starting from the top.
Yeah, I agree.
And I have also had cases wherein nag-uumpisa pa lang yung negosyo, siyempre hirap sila. Nung nag-uumpisa, hirap sila, solid eh. Naku, kung kailan lumaki na. Kung kailan naging successful na. Parang feeling nung isa, na-overshadowed na ako, partner din naman ako, di ba? I'm sure you don't have that in your company, but have you ever thought and considered what if that thing happens and how are you going to deal with it?
Well, for me, what's most important is there's openness. There's openness. And I think when all parties feel heard,
Yes.
that's how somehow you get to avoid those kinds of issues. Kasi as long as alam mong napakinggan ka, hindi na disregard yung opinion mo, and at the same time, na-consider,
Yes.
then for the most part, that really helps curb yung mga ganong feelings na I've been overshadowed, that I'm not being appreciated as
Yes.
part of this group.
Yes.
No, so I think what's good is about our partnership is that strong yung foundation kasi we've known each other for like since we were 13 or 14 years old. So we're close to 40 now. So like 25 years. So strong yung foundation, and at the same time, the value lang talaga na we're open. We're
Yes.
open. We consider each other's inputs. That really helps curb yung ganong feelings.
Tsaka may kanya-kanyang strength naman yun eh.
I
no?
agree. I agree.
So we have one shared goal, but we fuse the strength together and make it work. No? So, what would be your next drive? What would be your next goal for Frankie's?
For Frankie's, it's continuing to professionalize the company. Kasi when we started out, it was so reliant on the founders' efforts and hours that we put
Yes.
in.
Yes.
But clearly, as we scale, that's not possible anymore. Especially, I remember you also mentioned the levels of like the survival,
Yes,
then
yes.
success, then significance.
Yes, that's it.
So we are at different points in our lives as well. So hindi na pwede yung 12, 16-hour work days, diba? So parang it's really professionalizing the company, but at the same time ensuring that we don't lose our soul
Yes.
or our culture as we do that. So that's very important to us. That's why very slow and steady kami. We're at almost 14 years this year. I think modest yung expansion namin. We're at 26 branches now.
Yes. Yes.
Some people within 2 years, 3 years, go from 50 diba, to 100. Kami, we're very slow and steady and very intentional about our
That's good. That's good.
expansion. No? So it's ensuring lang na wherever we go, we're able to keep the culture, the product, and the service intact pa rin talaga. So for me, that's the most important thing right now, that even as we scale, we don't lose that.
Because I have known of businesses just when they're scaling, they collapse.
Yeah.
Well, the support system is not there, the infrastructure is not there, and the people that they got are not exactly very good people. So the growth principle is growth is good, but in the pursuit of growth, for growth's sake alone, is a dangerous thing.
I agree.
So, and yeah, as a matter of fact, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not necessarily slow and steady. Because we're now living in an environment where speed now replaces slow pace. But if the infra is there, the system is there, the good people is there, kaya ang daming trabaho ng HR. You gotta be hiring good people, you gotta be finding good talents. So growth, to pursue it because you just want to grow, is not healthy. But growth should be a byproduct of doing the right things consistently well. No? So are your partners sold into that, or would they think na, kailangan, strike while the iron is hot and everything?
I've heard that line so
You've
many
heard that
times.
line before.
Actually, it's been told to me so many times.
Pero you're very conscious about the system and the slow, steady growth.
To be honest, when we were during our first few years, someone told me that line actually, na parang, I don't think we're expanding fast enough, no? Na parang, we have to strike now while the iron is hot, diba? So, but during that time, I didn't feel that comfortable yet. I was saying na parang, I don't think the systems are in place yet for us to expand at that pace. Give me a few years, let me complete the team lang, then maybe we can ramp up our expansion.
Yes.
And during that time, there was a similar casual dining brand din. Siguro the same year or close to the same year na nag-start as us, and they had more branches. And so one of my partners were like, how come sila ganyan? They have this number of branches. And to be fair, once we had the system in place and the people in place, na-ramp up naman namin kahit paano yung expansion namin. We now have more stores than
And the
that
other one.
brand as well.
Okay.
So I think kanya-kanyang timing lang eh. You
Oo
can't
nga.
always compare yourself
Oo nga.
to others. You always have to focus on what you do best and your own vision. Yeah.
Comparing is a very deadly game, eh. Nakakatakot din yun. Well, let me share with you what I've learned from Jim Collins.
I love Jim Collins.
Yeah, the book Good to Great and How the Mighty Fall. So I've listened to him, watched him 4 times. And he usually repeats the flywheel concept
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything else. But there's something that he really said that really stuck in my mind, which is this. Sabi niya, you should spur progress. In fact, yung ginagamit ng mga motivational speaker natin, what is your BHAG? Big, hairy,
Yeah, yeah.
audacious goal. Galing naman sa kanya.
Correct.
And then sabi niya, you have to spur progress, but you have to stick to your core. So yung core talaga strengthened.
Yeah.
Pero the mindset now is for growth. And minsan, the temptation to grow should not overpower the compromise on your core. And are you a family man now?
Yeah, I am.
How
Three
many kids?
kids.
Yeah, three
Three
kids.
young kids. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. So, have you after running the business for so long, have you discovered certain adjustments you have to do in your own role now as a father and as a family person, as a business founder?
Yeah, for sure. So before I was working 12, 16 hours a day. And I think having my first kid, our eldest, si Luke, no, it really forced me to slow down. na hard stop, 6 p.m.
Yes.
I have to be home.
Okay.
I've been with my wife and
All
our
right.
son, and now with our 3 kids. No? So now actually, I only go to the office about 3 times a week. I still work remotely on
Yes.
the other days, but
Yes, yes.
definitely I feel like there's more work-life integration. I used to call it work-life balance, but one of my
Yeah.
coaches in
That's true.
EOA, si Coach Chris, he would always tell me na it should be work-life integration. No, so
Probably got it from me.
maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, some people call it work-life integration. Some people call it work-life harmony. But
Okay.
work-life balance is no way. There's no such thing. Yeah.
So actually, we had an ideation with a major supplier a week ago, and I told my wife, "Do you want to come with me?"
Yes.
But it's fun,
Yes.
ganyan. So
Yes.
I've been more deliberate about trying to incorporate both aspects of my life, So, and in this day and age, it's the best time actually.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
We have the technology, we have the means, so yeah.
Before COVID-19, I would average about 300 engagements in a year. Talks here, seminars here, engagements. And my wife will always be with me. Yeah, she's quietly seated at the back, but at the same time praying for me, interceding. And then at the same time, she is the most trusted provider of feedback. And because what I do is I face audiences all the time. People don't even know she's my wife. And then when they go to the restrooms, you hear a lot of comments. And my wife is my most bitter skeptic and critic, diba? Which is what we need, diba?
Yeah.
Is your wife the same?
Yeah. To be fair, yeah. And to be honest, I think she deserves a lot of credit as well for a lot of what we have achieved in Frankie's. A lot of policies, ideas. I actually also got from her.
Oh.
So I think it really helped being open talaga. Apart from my partners, it's also my wife that really
And
helped
what's
shape.
her background that enables her to contribute?
Actually, my wife is my blockmate in LaSalle. She's also a
Okay.
communication arts graduate.
Okay.
But just like me, she went into business.
All right.
So also not her course.
Yes,
no?
yes.
But She's also into photography. So during the early days, it was her and our other partner, Kevin, who took photos for our menu.
Oh, okay.
So, laking bagay din, ang laking tulong kasi we
Oh,
couldn't afford, a professional
yes.
photographer
Oh,
during that
God.
time. So,
Oh,
I think again that really also helped. And my wife's insights talaga have always
yes.
been very valuable. No? So, and apart from that, I think just the support that she gives, the support that she provides, it's really enough to help me function when it comes to the days na very overwhelming talaga in different aspects of running the business. Parang if your tank is full at home,
Yes,
then
yes,
you're able to
yes.
function better than sa
You can even
business.
travel more.
Yeah, and I always tell people I think my wife is a lot smarter than I am. It just so happens I'm the one here, but if honestly, if we didn't have three kids, maybe she could also help me out. At one point, I did consider that, but she made it clear that her focus is on our family as well. So
I like what you
yeah,
said. Your wife is probably smarter than you. Because I remember a story where yung nagdadrive yung husband, yung wife niya, maganda. Tapos sabi niya, ay nako, napaka-bobong talaga, di ka nag-iisip, you're so dumb and everything. Sabi niya, you're just a pretty face. Sabi niya, I know, that's why I married you. And do you see certain qualities in you that you're beginning to see in your kids?
qualities.
Following the same footstep maybe one day?
My eldest, the attention to detail.
Mm.
My eldest, and actually even our daughter, my second kid, Maya. I think the attention to detail. That's something that I also want them to have. Because I think it's those small things that people don't always see, but they
Yes.
will experience
Right.
when they walk into a store, sa Frankie's. No? So these little things, like for example, I would always, whenever I eat out, may bag ako eh. So I always look for a bag hook where I
Oh,
could place my
okay.
bag. Not all
Yeah.
restaurants have that,
Oo
no?
nga, no?
So, parang you get a chair, you put your stuff there, di ba? But sometimes, it's a hassle eh. Kasi, lalo na for the restaurant, you use up so many chairs para dun sa
Oo nga.
bags.
Yes,
At the
yes,
same
yes.
time, it's very vulnerable to na makuhaan or what, no? So, when I saw it in one establishment, sabi ko, all our restaurants need to have this, the bag hook. And I always told the staff na it's the first thing you tell our guests. If they have
Yes.
bags or they
Oo.
shopping sila,
Oo.
you offer the bag hook
Yeah,
underneath.
that's
Kasi
true.
at least it's secure under the table.
Yes, yes,
At the same
yes.
time, maluwag yung area. Most of our branches also have speakers in the CR.
Oh?
Yeah,
Oh, so
so
they can, yeah.
para at least relaxing din yung
Oo.
experience nila.
Yes.
So I always tell my kids na and our employees that it's attention to detail that will really make the difference. It's
Right,
all the small
right.
things that you add them up, it'll be a cohesive, it's a collective
Yes.
experience that will make a
I'm
difference.
gonna dig deeper into that, into the philosophical approach kung bakit you think that way. Like, ako, I'm very sensitive to things because I'm a public speaker. I do training. I wrote about this in my column, and I would say, alam mo, if I go to a place, I would immediately know whether this particular establishment is relevant, progressive, o napapag-iwanan na. As a speaker, if you're still using the traditional projector, lahat ng tao ngayon LED na ang screen. So that's
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
For me, it's very particular for me.
Yeah.
Secondly, and a lot of people find it fascinating and funny, sabi ko, if I go to the restroom, dapat may bidet yan. Kasi yung mga expectation ng customers now is
Yeah.
rising higher. Nung araw, they don't even know how to pronounce that word, di ba?
Yeah.
So, the philosophical explanation behind, so that you can think about back hooks and everything else, is because we really care for our audience and our clients. In other words, there's this one big important business principle which a lot of people may have neglected because it's too simple and simplistic for them, but you got to think like a customer.
I agree. I
So you
agree.
may be a founder, yeah, you run the business, you own all of this, but you still have to think like a
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But do you see a change in the consumer behavior now, especially with the different generations that are shifting?
Actually, when we were reviewing our sales of our different items earlier this year, I was so surprised kasi 2025 versus 2024, we were positive. We were positive. Parang nag-increase yung business, yung revenue. But funny thing was, alcohol sales went down 20%. So, parang when we were talking to our people nga, especially our marketing, parang yun nga, parang it was an eye-opener that the Gen Zs now,
Exactly.
parang they're living healthier lifestyles.
Yes.
And the cafe culture talaga is really,
Yes.
is really at its peak, I think.
Yes. Globally speaking, alcohol consumption went down. So that's the biggest challenge with all these alcohol companies because the Gen Z now, they don't think it's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, they're healthy, conscious, and what else? What are the other consumer behavior changes?
Well, sabi ko nga, parang kaming millennials yung mga last Lasengo generation eh. Kasi, what else?
Say that again, the last Lasengo generation.
The last Lasengo generation. Yeah, kasi imagine from millennials to Gen Z, bilang bagsak 20% in 1 year, that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm sure all the alcoholic beverage companies are really
going through that.
feeling it. No? What else? Convenience.
Okay.
Deliveries, for example. So a big chunk of our business are deliveries. No? So when we first started Frankie's, I didn't think our food was really, the type na for delivery kasi we have sauces. And the chicken gets soggy. Pag pinadeliver mo 30, 45 minutes in transit. By the time it gets to the guest, it's a bit soggy na eh. So we gave this option for them to separate the sauce para at least if they want, when it gets to them now and ready to eat it, sila na yung maglalagay ng sauce. No? But again, surprisingly, a lot of people still continue to order Frankie's through Grab, through Food Panda,
Deliveries.
our ordering website as well. No? So it's a big chunk of our business. And I think it's gonna continue to be that way for a long time. Kasi convenience talaga in an app lang, tapos within 2 minutes, tapos ka na mag-order, nakabayad ka na, you just wait for your food. It's so convenient. And I remember I was so resistant kasi back then when we were exclusive with Food Panda, I think di pa sila Food Panda noong time na yun. And they had the hotline. They had a hotline. Yeah. And then tinanggal nila. Sabi nila, you can only order through the app na lang. And during that time, I was complaining. I was telling them, mga Pinoy, sanay sa tawag, ganyan. We don't want to order through an app, diba? Pinoys want to have a number to call, someone to talk to when they order. But next thing you know people adjusted, people adapted. Everyone is ordering through the app.
Yes.
Diba? So sometimes you have to have the mechanism to force people to adapt talaga eh. Otherwise, it's not gonna happen. So
I'm gonna bring you back to the physical store. Did you notice that the consumers or the clients or the customer now, the waiting time, are they more impatient now? Or you don't see that?
Parang they are actually.
They are, no?
They are. For me kasi syempre, I've been in the industry for quite some time. So I always, medyo modest yung expectations ko when it comes to serving time. But that's actually one of our top concerns when we're always reviewing what our top guest concerns are. And a lot of the times, it's also waiting time. No? So I feel like people have gotten so used to convenience talaga and
fast.
Speed. Yeah.
Well, as a matter of fact, when I'm doing leadership training, I will tell my audiences, I said now, we go back to about 15 years ago, slow but sure, quality. Ngayon, it's speed. Yung sometimes and I'm not saying that this is ideal, the quality suffers because you want to put speed before quality. So what's the general behavior now is basta bilisan mo, put it out there, and then you adjust. Then you tweak it. Siguro because of tech environment. Because tech, ilalabas nila, maraming glitches, pero dapat ilabas mo na.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
they'll
yeah.
adjust it, no?
Yeah.
So we see that especially with the younger generation that are impatient.
Yes.
So where do you see your company now within the next 2 to 5 years?
Well, in the next 2 to 5 years, actually, we're going more provincial now. No? So, used to be Metro Manila focused kami, but over the past 2 years, we've opened 2 branches in Cavite, one in Imus, one in Kawit. We also opened recently in Antipolo City and in SM Marilao.
All right.
And grabe, we were really surprised. The reception is really great. As in,
Malakas, no?
you'd think na parang everything is in Metro Manila. But to be honest, the
really.
opportunity is also in the provincial
Yes.
locations.
And we haven't talked about Visayas and Mindanao.
Exactly. Yeah.
That
yeah.
one entails a little bit of challenge because you
Yes.
gotta have commissaries all over the place.
Correct,
to do
correct,
things,
correct.
no? Pero it's
Yeah.
still a golden opportunity for you to expand.
And it's something we're trying to strengthen now, our supply chain. Kasi
Yeah.
our goal is to be in Baguio by next year, then to be in Cebu by 2028.
Okay.
So
Yes.
that's really our goal within the next 2 to 5 years to be all over the country and bring what we have in Metro Manila to the other parts of the Philippines so that they can experience Frankie's there as well.
On a scale of 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest, how important now is social media and digital marketing to you?
Oh, 10 out of 10. I think 10 talaga is the importance. And even during the early days of Frankie's in 2012, it really helped us kasi with minimal budget, to be honest, you can still put your brand out there. That's the strength of social media, you know. And I had a friend who told me like 3-4 years ago, na, Ed, trust me, TikTok is the next big thing. You want your brand to be there. And I gotta admit, hindi ko prioritize at first. No? And yung mga marketing ko were millennials as well, so they were
Yes,
skeptics, you know. But as we went along, I realized that, parang we had to get younger. We had to get younger and we had to keep up with the times. That's one of our core values talaga. So really, even social media is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
But the best thing talaga is na for the most part, you don't have to spend so much to, for your brand to be out there.
Yes,
so
that's
yeah,
true.
we live in such a time na it's so easy for your brand to be out there online. Diba?
Yes. But you have to be there.
Yeah.
diba? So, many businesses have been blindsided because, pambata lang yan. Ano ba naman yan? Diba? I'm guilty of that as well. So when it first came out, I said, para ito sa mga bata. It's not for me. But then I have to swallow my pride and I have to learn more and I have to listen to the younger people and then learn from them as well. 4 times. We got to go back to the number 4.
Sure.
Diba? So fail, and then you succeed. I don't know if our audiences out there would notice this. This is not your typical rags to riches story, but we always want to pull out principles and ika nga, superpowers or secret sauce behind the people who went through the journey. And if there's people who want to go into business and they're in that gray zone wherein hirap na ako, hindi ko malaman kung magsasurvive pa ako o hindi. So, what will your advice be to our
For
viewers?
me, what kept me going during those times, it's very cliche, but I think you have to have a very clear why, clear reason for why you want to keep doing what you're doing. At the same time, the other half of it kasi is I started young. I was 22 when I first went into business with my friends, and I was broke by 23. So the other side of it is when you've lost pretty much everything that you have, in terms of my accounts that my parents set up for me, zero na, negative even. And I had nothing left in my wallet, basically 20 pesos at one point. When you've lost that much na parang there's nothing left to lose eh. Diba? So, with that, back against the wall ka na, you go 100%. Kasi, what have you got to lose? So, you just give everything na. And then, of course, syempre, mapapagod ka rin at one point eh, which is why the why has to come in there. You have to have a strong why. Otherwise, I would have folded and said na, mahanap na lang ako trabaho. Diba? But I think, yun. So, my why back then was my father, like I mentioned, kasi he went into public service.
Yes.
And he was a relatively successful physician or doctor, along with my mom. And they had a stable practice. When he went into politics, it entailed a lot of money, which they sold a lot of things and they had to find funds. And my dad being a straight person, diba? Straight politician, financially, we really struggled. We struggled more than what we were used to after that. So that was my why during those times, to make sure that when it's all said and done, that my parents would be okay. My parents would at least kahit papano have a fallback. Kasi I knew that they were so passionate about serving na they were going all out. And I was worried na by the time nga na retired na sila, they would have given everything that they have. So that was my very strong why, apart from the other half na wala na rin eh. Might as well go all out. So,
knowing your why, knowing your purpose, another version of that is perhaps knowing your calling. Kaya ka na ilagay dyan eh. So, and then you make the most out of that. Right?
And that's why it expands eh. It expands as you go along. As the business grew, it was about providing jobs, quality jobs for people, long-term employment. It was providing wonderful memories for our guests. And, it was about providing for my family as well, my own family na. So that's why it gradually grows and expands as you go along. So,
well, I don't know. Di ko lang alam kung napansin nyo, those of you who've been watching episodes of Kongversation, that as a matter of fact, all of the successful people we have interviewed, it's beyond them. It's always their purpose. It's always for a grander vision apart from themselves. It's always a heart for service. And then the money and the wealth just happens to be a delightful surprise that rewards them for what they do. And I want to thank you for giving me time and adding a lot of value to the episodes and program. And I'm sure many of you have learned from him. And the food is really good. I'm not kidding.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Super
Yung nga lang, ba't
super
wala
delighted
kang
to be
dala
here.
ngayon? I-interview
May dala akong
naman kita.
GC. If it's any consolation, may dala akong GC.
Oh, thank you. Again, warning, this is not a paid sponsor program. Narinig ko si Ed, when he was sharing his story, said, hindi, kailangan malaman ng tao yung story na yan. So, thank you.
Thank you again.
And for all of you out there, uulitin ko na naman, many of you are viewing this and I'm so happy and I'm so grateful. Kaya lang, many of you are still not subscribed to the channel. So, matagal ko na pinractice, so ulitin ko na. If you like this program, click like and then subscribe. There you go. Maraming salamat. Ed, thank you.
Thank you so
salamat.
much. Thank you so
And
much.
thank you.